counter where the government was doing a cover-up of its lapses. Government, on the other hand, is claiming that they have simply followed what happened on the ground, where the police was, they claim, put in a situation where they had no option but to fire. So the big story is coming in there from Mumbai. The Badlapur rape accused has been shot dead. But first, let's go now to the United Nations, where Prime Minister Modi is speaking at the moment.
History held recently in June, the people of India have given me the opportunity to serve them for the third consecutive term. And today, I bring the voice of this 1/6 of humanity to you. Friends, when we are discussing global future, we must accord
ग्लोबल फ्यूचर की बात कर रहे हैं तो ह्यूमन सेंट्रिक अप्रोच सर्वप्रथम होनी चाहिए। सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट को प्राथमिकता देते हुए हमें मानव कल्याण, फूड, हेल्थ सिक्योरिटी ये भी सुनिश्चित करनी होगी। भारत में 250 मिलियन लोगों को गरीबी से बाहर निकालकर हमने यह दिखाया है कि सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट कैन बी सक्सेसफुल। सक्सेस का हमारा यह अनुभव हम ग्लोबल साउथ के साथ साझा करने के लिए तैयार है। फ्रेंड्स, success of humanity lies in our collective strength, not in the battlefield. और वैश्विक शांति एवं विकास के लिए ग्लोबल संस्थाओं में रिफॉर्म्स आवश्यक है। रिफॉर्म इज द की टू रिलेवेंस। अफ्रीकन यूनियन को नई दिल्ली समिट में G20 की स्थायी सदस्यता इसी दिशा में एक महत्वपूर्ण कदम था। वैश्विक शांति और सुरक्षा के लिए एक तरफ आतंकवाद जैसा बड़ा खतरा है तो दूसरी तरफ साइबर, मैरीटाइम, स्पेस जैसे अनेक संघर्ष के नए नए मैदान भी बन रहे हैं। इन सभी विषयों पर मैं जोर देकर कहूंगा कि ग्लोबल एक्शन मस्ट मैच ग्लोबल एम्बिशन। फ्रेंड्स, टेक्नोलॉजी के सेफ और रिस्पॉन्सिबल यूज के लिए बैलेंस रेगुलेशन की आवश्यकता है। हमें ऐसी ग्लोबल डिजिटल गवर्नेंस चाहिए जिसमें राष्ट्रीय संप्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रहे। डिजिटल पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर शुड बी ए ब्रिज, नॉट अ बैरियर। ग्लोबल गुड के लिए भारत अपना डिजिटल पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पूरे विश्व से साझा करने के लिए तैयार है। फ्रेंड्स, भारत के लिए वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर एक कमिटमेंट है। यही कमिटमेंट हमारे वन अर्थ, वन हेल्थ और वन सन, वन वर्ल्ड, वन ग्रिड जैसे इनिशिएटिव्स में भी दिखाई देता है। पूरी मानवता के हितों की रक्षा और वैश्विक समृद्धि के लिए भारत मनसा वाचा कर्मणा से काम करता रहेगा। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Okay, that was Prime Minister Narendra Modi at a summit that was UN Summit of the Future, addressing that in the United States, where he is on a 3-day trip. This is the most consequential meeting he's had here was with the Quad leaders. That, remember, was chaired by President Biden of the United States and the leaders from Australia, Japan, India, and the United States were there. The Wilmington Declaration, many believe, has set the most direct signal now to China, where these 4 countries of the Quad have come together to send out a message that they will protect their strategic interests in the region. Take a look at our top story today.
The Quad Summit, hosted by US President Joe Biden in his hometown of Wilmington in Delaware, sent out the grouping's sharpest message yet to China without naming it. A joint statement by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, Japanese Prime Minister Kishida Fumio, and President Biden said the 4 countries seek to uphold the international order based on the rule of the law. The Wilmington Declaration said the Quad stands for the maintenance of peace and stability across Indo-Pacific. They strongly oppose any destabilizing or unilateral actions that seek to change the status quo by force or coercion. The Quad seeks a region where no country dominates and no country is dominated, a region where all countries are free from coercion and can exercise their agency to determine their futures. The 4-nation group announced a new regional maritime initiative for training in the Indo-Pacific called MATRI, to monitor and secure waters, enforce laws and deter unlawful behavior. India will be hosting the inaugural MATRI workshop in 2025. The Coast Guards of the 4 countries also plan to launch a first ever Quad at Sea ship observer mission in 2025. The summit shed any ambiguity and made it clear that Quad is here to stay.
हमारी बैठक ऐसे समय हो रही है जब विश्व तनावों और संघर्षों से घिरा हुआ है। ऐसे में साझा डेमोक्रेटिक वैल्यूज के आधार पर क्वाड का मिलकर साथ चलना पूरी मानवता के लिए बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है। फ्री, ओपन, इंक्लूसिव और प्रॉस्परस इंडो पैसिफिक हमारी साझा प्राथमिकता और साझा प्रतिबद्धता है।
While China was not mentioned in the statement, President Biden was caught on the microphone saying China continues to behave aggressively, testing us all across the region.
Mr. President, will the Quad survive beyond the election in November?
What survive?
The Quad, will it survive regardless of the outcome?
Prime Minister Modi's visit to the US was also marked by the increasing cooperation between the 2 countries. India and the US will also set up a national security semiconductor plant.
AI का मतलब है अमेरिकन, इंडियन, अमेरिका, इंडिया, ये स्पिरिट है और वही तो नई दुनिया का एआई पावर है। यही एआई स्पिरिट भारत अमेरिका रिश्तों को नई ऊंचाई दे रहा है।
The Quad Declaration on Indo-Pacific comes amidst China's efforts to encircle India in its neighborhood. This weekend, another unknown was added to the equation. Sri Lanka got its first communist president in Anurakumara Dissanayake. Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, now while Prime Minister Narendra Modi is on a trip to the United States, that significant development taking place in the neighborhood because left-leaning Anura Kumara Dissanayake took oath as Sri Lanka's president in Colombo earlier today. So there you have Prime Minister Modi with US President Joe Biden. But at home, remember, this is another ring of fire as we are calling it because Dissanayike's party, the Janata Vimukti Peramuna, is known for having taken an anti-India stand in the past, is considered close to China. How will all of this change? India's envoy was one of the first to meet Desai Naike personally, congratulate him. And in February, he had visited India and met both the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. So clearly, you've got the neighborhood moving in one direction and the Prime Minister and the Quad hopefully creating, they hope, their own strategic platform to take on China. Let's raise some big questions. AI in the US, ring of fire in the neighborhood. Will Quad give India greater global leverage? What should be India's role in Quad? Is neighborhood becoming our big challenge? Can Quad tackle an aggressive China? Joining me now, Jehan Pereira, Executive Director, National Peace Council of Sri Lanka, joins us from Colombo. KC Singh, former Secretary, MEA, Kaval Sibal, former Foreign Secretary, and Michael Kugelman, Director, South Asia Institute, joining us. Let's come to each of you on that big question which I have raised today. Are we seeing an emergence of a new alliance through Quad to contain China? Is my opening question, and I will get each of you to respond to that. Starting with you, KC Singh, your first reactions to what we've seen with the Quad. Are you seeing India now positioning itself along with America, Japan and Australia to maintain peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific region as a counter to China?
Look, Rajdeep, this meeting was important not because it was going to be path-breaking or something new has happened. This was the last meeting that President Biden is taking. He's the one who elevated it to the leadership level 4 years ago. And also the other lame duck in that is the Japanese Prime Minister. Therefore, two members who are lame duck, who are soon giving up power. And you got the rumblings of a Trump in the background, whose approach to Quad is unknown because he can be an isolationist and he can be quite different. And therefore, this was more a case of continuity. Most of the themes have been known for a long time. Open Pacific, open Indo-Pacific. So thematically, you add just small little bits each time and try taking it forward. Essentially, Quad is a non-military alliance which is countering China through non-military means. So let's not read too much into the into a military dimension into it. So therefore, it's how to deny technology to China, how to contain it, how to rival China's Belt and Road Initiative, and therefore development assistance, healthcare, cancer treatment. What they did during COVID times, do that. So I think it's realized by, and India has always supported this, is that you have to meet China by multiple means. And the military one is not the only one.
Let me bring in Michael Kugelman, therefore, from Washington on that. Michael Kugelman, when I read the Wilmington Declaration joint statement by Quad leaders, interesting elements are: we strongly oppose unilateral actions to change status quo by force or coercion. We seek regions where no country dominates and no country is dominated, a region where all countries are free from coercion. Clearly, the aim is somewhere to contain China. But can you really contain China with non-military means? Can the Quad really work in that direction?
Well, I would argue that the Quad serves both security and non-security purposes. I mean, indeed, as was noted before, there are a number of non-security related initiatives that are meant to counter China. This notion of working together to provide public goods throughout the Indo-Pacific, whether you're talking about clean energy technologies or infrastructure, the idea there is to provide something that the region sees as a better alternative to what it's getting from China. So the strategic component is always there. This is always about countering China. But that said, there are security components to the Quad. It's of course not an alliance, but one of the major takeaways from this latest summit is that the four decided to sign an agreement to work together on maritime cooperation to counter illegal fishing, and that clearly is directed at China. There's also plans for the four coast guards to work together. So I think that the Quad has very effectively blended both security and non-security tactics in efforts to counter China's rising influence and increasingly provocative acts.
And do you see it, Michael, lasting beyond President Biden's term, irrespective of who comes to power in the United States in November?
Well, I mean, if we agree that the China factor is a big part of what makes the Quad be successful, then the answer is definitely yes, because I think that there's strong bipartisan support in Washington around the idea that great power competition, U.S.-China competition, is one of the core U.S. foreign policy challenges. So I think that regardless of who wins the presidency, you're going to see, from a U.S. perspective, continuity, and I think that there'll be a strong embrace of the Quad. I mean, the Quad first began to become re-energized and resurface during the Trump administration. Let's keep that in mind. So I think that if Trump returns to the presidency, I imagine that he would be enthusiastic about building on what the Quad has become at this point.
I just for a moment want to shift from the Quad and I'll bring in Kamal Sibal and Jehan Pereira. You, Mr. Pereira, first. You're our guest from Colombo because we've seen today a bit of history being created in Colombo. The first Marxist president, if I may be allowed to use that word, for Mr. Desai Naike being sworn in. And many see that this will lead to a shift in in Sri Lanka's focus once again towards China at the cost of India. Is that being too simplistic? The JVP in the past has had an anti-India stand, but much water has flown under the Park Strait since then. Do you see Mr. Desai Naike moving distinctly closer to China or not?
Well, not only has the JVP been in the past anti-India, they've also engaged in insurrections, 2 insurrections against the Sri Lankan state. But I would say that things have changed very much now. I would actually hesitate to call President Dissanayake a communist because I don't see him that way. I see him now as a mainstream politician. His alliance that won the election is called the National People's Power. It is no longer the JVP. The JVP is the core element of it, but the National People's Power is certainly not seen by the people as a communist alliance. And people voted for President Dissanayake because they want a corruption-free administration, because corruption is so endemic and people see the economic collapse that took place in Sri Lanka in 2022, which India helped us get out of, as being due solely, primarily to corruption. So this will vote for honest government, clean government. And I also don't agree that the new government, the president, is going to be a sort of a tool of China.
But the JVP is considered close to China. You don't see, therefore, Desai Naike allowing China to increase its circle of influence in Sri Lanka?
I mean, I don't think, I mean, the JVP, perhaps in the past, they were close to China, but I think now they are Sri Lankan nationalists. They are for Sri Lanka.
Okay.
And I think, and they visited India. They visited India in February of this year, and Dissanayake came and spoke very well of India. I really don't see them as becoming a tool. I mean, they are aware of India's security concerns. They're always very conscious of it. They speak of it.
Okay. Kamal Sibal, it's interesting how India's sort of foreign outreach seems to be increasingly successful in Washington. The Quad seems to have been strengthened this week, even as domestically we are surrounded or encircled by what many believe is a ring of fire. We've seen what happened in Bangladesh last month. We've seen a major change in Sri Lanka. We've seen anti-Indian sentiments in the Maldives. We know how Pakistan responds, Afghanistan, Myanmar. So in the region itself, we have multiple challenges, even as we seem to be increasingly successful globally in our attempts to somehow contain China with the United States, Japan, Australia also with us.
Two things. What you've said about India is true of China too. They have extremely difficult relations in the neighborhood. In fact, it is worse for them because they're pitted against the world's foremost nuclear power, which has bases there, which have military deployments in the region, which has alliances in the region, and yet China has all this while spread its wings worldwide and has established itself as a power at the global level, challenging the United States of America. Or you look at the United States. It can't handle Nicaragua, it can't handle Maduro in Venezuela, it can't handle Cuba. It's unable to deal with the situation in the Middle East with all the power that it had, but yet it has a global policy of its own and it pursues it. Russia is involved in a collapse of its ties with Europe and is involved in a conflict. But look at the way they are spreading their wings in Africa. They have achieved a great deal of success there. Likewise, in Asia, they have done quite a bit in terms of establishing.
Right.
So India is not unique in this case. Therefore, let's not make this analysis that because our neighborhood is troubled, therefore somehow we have failed in our policy, and therefore it's in contradiction with our global image or the global exercise of our influence. That's one aspect.
But how do we manage? Are you not worried about an increasing Chinese sphere of influence in our neighborhood?
No, the Chinese influence was always there. Even in Sri Lanka, Singhe was very much made a lot of gestures towards China. He attended the BRI forum. He was present there. He supported the BRI. So it's not as if he's not done that. But with Dasan Naike, as has already been said, there is a change of mood in Sri Lanka. They have seen actually the way we help Sri Lanka. Any sensible Sri Lankan leader would realize that India is a very vital partner. And the problems it faced last time can happen again because they have to go to the IMF. There will be, demands made on them to control inflation, to control public spending, and all the usual conditionalities that come to the IMF. And therefore, they'll have to turn to somebody. And India is always there.
Okay.
With Muzo, let me complete. In Muzo, in Maldives, there has been a change. He's become very positive towards India relatively, which is a good thing. In case of Nepal, there has been constant change of governments. Their politics is totally unstable, but Prime Minister has met only in New York. Bangladesh is a new problem, but let's see how the wind blows in there, because at the end of the day, the connections that have been established, the connectivities and the economies that have been tied together in so many ways in terms of our power supplies and everything else, I think the new government, when it settles down, when elections take place, they'll realize that the relationship with India is very important.
Okay.
But it's not that we have a stable and very friendly neighborhood, but we'll be able to manage the situation.
Okay, you believe it can be contained, it should not be seen as something new or changing at the moment. KC Singh, you want to respond to what you're hearing? You heard Michael Kugelman also seemingly suggesting that the Quad can play an important role, that India, even with a Trump, should there be a Trump administration come November, there will be an even greater commitment to Quad. Has the Modi government got it right in the manner that we pushed Quad at the same time, even while in the region itself, we seem to be encircled?
No, as Mr. Sibal said, it can't be unidimensional. All foreign policy is multidimensional. And you have to do multitasking. So you have to manage local crises, you have to reach out, and you have to have your core values. But I think one of the problems that particularly the BJP government will have in handling the neighborhood is the excessive majoritarianism. Because you look at the neighborhood, there's only one Hindu power next to us, and that is Nepal. And Nepal has been taken over by the communists. And for them, any Hindu nationalism means the old ruling family, and they don't want it. So the ones who are Hindu don't want this Hindu nationalism. And then all around us, there are the Muslim countries, there are two Buddhist countries. So it becomes easy to know what is happening in Bangladesh. Jamaat-e-Islami has been unshackled. They will definitely come in with a more right-wing Islamist approach whenever there's a government, and once BNP wins, then the old alliance comes back. No, Americans may have made a mistake. At the moment, they may think that they've got a Nobel laureate who can handle Bangladesh. But when the elections come in, then that is where Americans normally go wrong. In a popular election, they're not able to control the outcome. Nobody can. We can't. Americans can't.
But have we got the point, have we, while we are encircled by this ring of fire here in the neighborhood, seemingly, have we got our global strategy when it comes to the United States particularly right this time? We've managed to somehow or the other over the last few years slowly institutionalize Quad as a possible bloc that can contain China.
Rajdeep, this has not started with the BJP today. I was additional secretary in the ministry when the first meeting at the additional secretary level in 2006 took place on the sidelines of the East Asia Summit. So I attended that meeting. But then what happened is the change of prime minister, Abe left in Japan, and a conservative government fell in Australia. And that brought about the change, and so it was put aside. And then, as it was just mentioned, during Trump's time, because they were focusing on China. They revived it. And Biden has taken it up to the leadership level.
Right.
So it's not a new idea. It's an idea which probably the time had not fully come at that stage. When Abe came back as prime minister, so it's not just Trump.
Okay.
When Abe came back as prime minister, he pushed for its revival. And that is when the foreign minister level started. And then, of course, Biden took it to the leadership level.
So you're saying it's been continuous. It's not been as if this was something that has just started in the last couple of years. There's been an element of continuity. But Michael Kugelman, do you see it being taken to the next level? Given that China remains or is seen by all members of the Quad and other countries also as a potential threat to future stability in this region.
Well, I mean, as I think was mentioned earlier, this Quad summit, the joint statement that came out of it, it had some of the strongest language used to date about the South China Sea and the provocations there. And clearly the reference was to China. So clearly the four countries, the four Quad members are now comfortable with that level of rhetoric. I imagine if the U.S. had its druthers, it would have wanted to mention China specifically in the joint statement, but I imagine several of the others did not agree. But look, here is where I think the India factor in the Quad looms large. If you want to talk about next phases, next steps, what makes India so important for being in the Quad is the geography, among other things. The three other Quad countries are Pacific powers. They're based in East Asia, and they're in the Pacific part of the Indo-Pacific. India is located in the Indian Ocean region, and the neighbors, the countries that we've been talking about that are posing challenges to India now, they are very much a part of the Indo-Pacific as well. And when we talk about how the Quad looks to develop public goods and offer them to countries around the region to try to get them to have a better option than what they might be getting offered from China, I think in theory that applies to the South Asian states as well, to India's neighbors. So I think that if we can look to a Quad in the future where there's more efforts to deliver these goods, not just to East Asia, but also to countries in South Asia as well. But that said, I think that there's always going to be some constraints. I think one of the big issues with the Quad over the last 2 years has been the Russia factor. I think they've been able to work through that despite India's different position from the others. And I think that there is going to always be that level of uncertainty because the Quad is not a formal institution. It doesn't have letterhead. It doesn't have a secretariat. So what we have to look for in terms of a signpost over the next few years, will the leaders' summits keep happening? There almost wasn't one this year. So I think that continuity will be a really important thing to watch.
Well, India is hoping to host the next Quad summit in 2025. Jehan Pereira, let me once again come back to the neighborhood. You seem to suggest that the new government in Sri Lanka recognizes the importance of India, recognizes the support India gave Sri Lanka during its economic crisis a couple of years ago. Do you therefore believe there's a broad consensus across the political spectrum in Sri Lanka of the need to have strong ties with India, irrespective of the JVP's past?
Yes, I agree. I think that Sri Lanka learned two lessons. One, in the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s, that we needed to be cognizant of India's security interests when we were fighting the LTT war. Secondly, we saw the importance of India as a backup, as a friend, as a support during the time of the economic collapse in 2022. I think these are lessons that the entire Sri Lanka have learned. Of course, we will want to do business with China. We will want Chinese investments, but we will also be aware that India's security interests will come foremost. We will do trade with India. There's a lot of interest. Both President Wickremesinghe, who's the outgoing president, he wanted to form a land bridge with India. The new president, he went to India and he's come back and he speaks about Indian technology, Indian assistance. So I'm confident that that we want to be close to India, the people want to be close, and it's across all parties.
Right. So in conclusion, therefore, Kanwal Sibal, very quickly to those who will say that Narendra Modi's government needs to perhaps refocus a bit on the neighborhood, what would you tell them? Would you tell them that they should there be a shift in some way, given that you've got Europe, which is in turmoil, West Asia, which is in turmoil? Where should India be looking, at the neighborhood or at strengthening Quad and global institutions?
These are not mutually exclusive. We should work with the neighborhood, do the best we can, engage our neighborhood, strengthen our connectivity with the neighborhood, make them part of our economic rise, if you like, give them benefits, not always necessarily absolutely reciprocal.
But the
come to
Modi
the-
years, if I may be allowed to say so, has seen the virtual collapse of SARC, for example.
SARC is a different matter altogether.
So are you saying those kind of regional cooperations do not exist? We need stronger bilateral ties within the region using our influence.
Firstly, that, and secondly, we've tried to build up BIMSTEC, but it's become more difficult with the problem in Myanmar because Myanmar is part of BIMSTEC, and in Afghanistan, but Afghanistan is not part of BIMSTEC. But nevertheless, we try to build a larger Southeast Asian and Southeast Asian kind of a forum with Thailand and Myanmar in it, but it hasn't quite worked. But it's something that we need to keep working on. So I don't think that we have to give up all our efforts that we need to make in our neighborhood to try and bring them close to each other. At the same time, since we are a rising power, we now have global footprint. We want to take the leadership of the global south in many ways. We are able to talk to all countries, to even countries which are adversarial to each other. We had a very successful G20 presidency. We are getting support, even though I don't think it's going to materialize in the near future, for a permanent membership of the Security Council. We are active in so many international forums. We are part of BRICS, we are part of SCO, we are part of Quad. We have strengthened our ties enormously with the United States of America. We're wanting to sign an FTA with Europe. So we're acting on so many fronts. Look at the ITU2 and, of course, the Middle East, India, Middle East, Europe corridor. Of course, the ITU2 is not going to work because of what's happened in Israel and in the Gaza area. But in terms of the Middle Eastern corridor, I think progress can be made in the southern part of the corridor. From India to the Middle East, the northern will have to wait till the situation in the Middle East stabilizes. So there are so many opportunities opening for us. We are strengthening our ties.
Mr. Sibal, I'm going to have to stop you because I'm going to have to stop you there because we're getting some breaking news that's coming in, which has been flashing on the screens. But I appreciate my guest joining us and giving us the big picture of how the global dialogue that India has initiated in the United States, and of course the repercussions also in Sri Lanka and the neighborhood. Thank you all very much for joining me. I want to turn to the story that we've been breaking since 9 p.m. today. Akshay Shinde, accused of sexually assaulting 2 minor girls at a school in Badlapur town of Maharashtra's Thane district, was shot dead by the police after he allegedly snatched an officer's revolver and fired, injuring 2 policemen. In response, another officer shot Shinde, leading to his death. The opposition has since targeted the Maharashtra government, demanding a judicial inquiry into the incident. So there you have question marks being raised. Was this a fake encounter? Even as the government says that the accused fired on the police. Let's get into viewpoints at the moment. Susiben Shah is of the Shiv Sena, the ruling party in Maharashtra. Clyde Crasto of the NCP are joining us at the moment. First to you, Susiben Shah, the opposition already saying that this is a fake encounter. Here was someone who allegedly was trying to fire at the police and then escaped and shot dead. It all seems very suspicious. Sharad Pawar has already said that he should have been hanged. You can't short-circuit justice. Your response?
Thank you for having me on the show, and a very good evening to all my dear friend Clyde, and to all the viewers who are here. I would like to say this, that when the gentleman was taken for remand, it was for another FIR filed against by him by his estranged wife. And the little that I've seen, the investigation is ongoing. While they were going in the Bolero, he was packed with another 2 inspectors while he was in Hatkari, as they call it, but the hand movement was very free. You can really, he was adjusting his burqa, what have you. So maybe, Clyde, let me complete, my dear fellow.
Nobody's stopping you.
While he could have, since he was, the 2 wives, the 2 estranged wives, and plethora of charges against him, the full proof charge sheet that the police have filed, maybe he was under pressure, maybe he was trying to escape, or, the investigation is ongoing. But I have no reason to believe that this was an encounter. It was in and by way of self-defense. Why?
So you refuse to accept the charge that this was a fake encounter. The opposition says this is a cover-up, and therefore
Cover up for what?
Cover up that he would have he was embarrassing the government. He has links with the ruling alliance, and therefore this was.
Not at all. It was at our instance. It was at our report that we had filed, where I was a member in the investigation while we are filing the report, that we clearly said that the management should be made the accused, not only the headmistress. Why should there be doubting Toms all the time?
Okay,
let the investigation happen.
Ma'am, you made
We've
your
done
point.
everything at a
No,
time.
let Clyde Crasto have a chance to respond. Why should there be doubting Tom's or doubting Clyde Crasto? Because the opposition is already saying this is a fake encounter. There are elements in the government who are saying till yesterday the opposition wanted speedy justice. Now you've got the alleged sexual assaulter. He's been killed, shot dead. How do you respond? Is the opposition playing the role of doubting Toms or doubting Clydes?
You know what, Rajdeep? Forget doubting Clydes, doubting Toms. There are a lot of doubting Rajdeep and a lot of doubting Susibens also around. You know, Susiben not be doubting. But there are a lot of doubting Susibens also, which I have spoken to in the last 1 hour. Fact is, Susiben went on to say he was adjusting his burqa or whatever. I mean, what is she trying to say?
Miss Shah, please. Miss Shah, do not intervene. No, please, he did not intervene with you. Please stay silent.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Talk. You know, I mean, are you trying to say that our police is so frivolous that they are just allowing to do anything and someone just whips out a revolver from a constable and starts firing? Listen.
The police claims they've also suffered injuries, Clyde. Police says they've suffered injuries.
Agree. Police suffers injury. This has happened before. There is more than what meets the eye here, Rajdeep. Understand me. There's something amiss here.
What is amiss? What according to you is amiss? Prima facie, what is amiss?
Well, it looks like an encounter to all of us. You know, not just doubting Clyde or Rajdeep, it appears an encounter to a lot of us. The fact is, you know, first the FIR was not lodged. For 12 hours, they did not lodge an FIR. Then there was a protest. The ones who protested were arrested. After the protest happened, you know, the FIR was filed. Susiben goes on to say that the trustees were also supposed to be in that ambit of this FIR. Where is all that? What is happening? And it is very clear that the people in the trustee unit or in the school unit were connected to the BJP and in the government. So that is the reason why all this is happening. So are they
but the school management also, Clyde, just a minute. I think our viewers have, the school management has also now been named in the FIR. Whether action is taken against them in what form is another matter.
Been named. Point here is, did Akshay know more? See, Rajdeep, for arguing, you and I can keep arguing till the cows come home. That's not the point. The point here is our police so weak? Is Susiben or the government trying to say that our police is so weak that somebody can just do whatever they want in
that's the point. Okay, Clyde Castro, you make a good point. You make a good point. Susiben Shah, just a minute, sir. Mr. Castro.
Who asked the police to be so loose? That's the question. It has to go deep down. The rot is deep within. These questions need to be asked. And we are asking that question. We are not doubting. We are asking the relevant right questions and answers must be given. By just calling us doubting, don't sideline the whole thing.
Okay, I've heard you. Please, Lord, you made your point. Susiben Shah, the fact is the police, it all seems prima facie to be a little absurd at the moment that a man is being taken out of jail. He suddenly apparently tries to take a weapon from the police, fire at them, and he's fired back and shot dead. All of this seems straight out of an encounter cop theory. And we've seen this across the country. Should Maharashtra fall for encounter cops? Sharad Pawar and others are saying, we wanted swift justice, hang him. But you can't short-circuit justice by saying we've shot dead because he was trying to escape. It seems absurd. Prima facie, to any neutral observer also, there seems dal mein kuch kala hai.
Mr. Sardesai, it is circumstantial. I'll tell you the reason why. Where was the constable API shot? He is grievously injured. There's no statement on him by the opposition. He's been shot on the foot while he was trying to remove the revolver. It seems so. I'm also not sure, but the circumstances say so that while the investigation is ongoing, he was shot on the foot. Now, the opposition might say encounter, not encounter. Let the investigation happen. We have spared no effort in filing a foolproof charge sheet, on filing a proper, stringent actions in the FIR. Why? And we also are very, very keen that such incidents never happen, but not through this encounter. Let us assure ourselves. You see the past past
Are you
history, the
open to
criminal
a judicial inquiry into what happened today?
Sorry?
Are you open to a judicial inquiry into what happened today? That an accused in a serious rape case suddenly is shot dead while he's leaving the police for leaving the jail?
There will be a foolproof investigation for me to say across to Mr. Sardesai whether it will be judicial inquiry or what type of inquiry is expecting a little too much. But be rest assured, investigation will be done.
Okay.
Which is the incidents where the investigation is not happened. Mr. Clyde Cresto keeps telling it's encounter. Arey bhaiya, encounter kyun? Why do you feel there is an encounter? Was it not a firefight?
Ms. Shah, encounter or not will be decided by an inquiry. The question, Clyde Cresto, comes, all of this is playing out because Maharashtra is about, 8 weeks away from elections, and there's a sense that the opposition wants to send out the message that there's a breakdown of law and order. That seems to be the opposition's sort of plank at the moment to corner the government. If the government has filed the FIRs, is carrying out inquiries, will you not give the government sufficient time to prove its bona fides?
Only agenda.
See, Rajdeep, the point here is, Rajdeep, you are saying that we are trying to prove there's a fail in law and order. There's a fail in law and order situation in Maharashtra. You look everywhere. A BJP, MLA goes into a police station with shot a revolver. The Koita gang in Pune are going berserk every, second day. The rapes are happening. So what's not happening? Just tell me, We are raising a question because the law and order situation is simply failing every single day. And while saying that, he was adjusting and he pulled out a revolver, you are insulting the police. Don't insult the police. They are very good. But the point here is, did someone put pressure on the police? What is going on? Whether the government likes it or not, a judicial inquiry has to happen. Who are they to like it or not? A judicial inquiry should happen in this case as to why this happened. Because there are a lot of links, a lot of connections go to prove that this should be an encounter. So prove it. Prove it that it's not an encounter.
Exactly.
Let there be a judicial inquiry. What are you afraid of? Let there be a judicial inquiry. What are you afraid of?
You must give up on
this. Okay, judicial inquiry, you see, this is, one would expect a state like Maharashtra with a reputation of having one of the better police forces in the country to be open to a judicial inquiry into what happened today. Was this an encounter where justice was sought to be short-circuited, or was this a genuine case where someone tried to escape and shot a police officer? Let me reiterate, one of the police officers at least has been injured. We don't know the exact nature of the injuries. This is still
seriously hurt.
Yes, we will wait to see what his exact nature of his injuries are. But for now, Susiben Shah and Clyde Cresto for shedding some more light from your party perspectives on that on that developing story. I appreciate both of you joining me. Thank you so much. We'll keep tracking that story. Let's turn to another story that we are tracking, the controversy in Tirupati over the alleged use of animal fat that continues to spark off sharp reactions. Today, TDD, the Tirupati Devasthanam board priests performed Shanti Homam at the temple to restore, they said, the sanctity of the prasadam. Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Chandrababu Naidu has announced an SIT probe comprising of officers of IGP and above to probe the allegations. Take a look at this report.
Storm over pig and beef fat in Tirupati Prasadam continues. Officials and priests of Tirupati Temple Trust performed cleansing ritual in Mandir premises. Shanti Homam was performed to restore the sanctity of Tirupati temple and prasadam. The ritual called Mahashanti Yagam was performed in strict accordance with scriptures. 8 temple priests, guided by 3 spiritual leaders, led the cleansing ritual. The cleansing started around 6 in the morning and lasted for 4 hours.
Evidentially, they are showing that it has finally evidentially proved. So after considering so many things, we have decided to come to a conclusion that after performing Shanti Homam to Lord Venkateswara, hopefully things will become normal.
This entire Shanti Homam started today morning at 6 a.m. and was successfully completed as per the rituals that had been taken place here. And not only was there a cleansing that had taken place, but also several other measures, purity measures, purification measures that were taken place here.
The Tirumala temple body also established a sensory panel to keep a check on ghee and food quality based on several parameters.
టీటీడీలో ఈ ఆవు నెయ్యి స్వచ్ఛత పరీక్షించడానికి ఎన్ఏబిఎల్ ల్యాబ్కు పంపించడం అనేది మొట్టమొదటిగా మనం ప్రారంభించాము. అది కంటిన్యూ చేస్తున్నాము. అలాగే సెన్సరీ ప్యానెల్ 18 మందితో సెన్సరీ ప్యానెల్ అనేది ఏర్పాటు చేయడం జరిగింది.
Chief Minister N. Chandrababu Naidu announced formation of an SIT on Sunday to probe allegations regarding adulteration of Tirupati prasadam.
Ordering an inquiry, IGP level or more than that, then the team will establish the facts. Finally, all temples, all prayer places, respect to religious people only will work, so that there won't be any violations. That also we are going to bring.
Union Minister Chirag Paswan called presence of beef and pork fat in prasadam a heinous crime. The opposition sought probe into the matter and strict action against the culprit.
हम सब चाहते हैं कि इस मामले पर जल्द से जल्द सब तथ्य सामने आने चाहिए. क्या ये हुआ, कब हुआ, किसने किया, दोषी कौन है, उनके नाम आने चाहिए और कितने दिनों में आप ये जांच पूरी करेंगे और कैसी सजा देंगे ऐसे लोगों को जिन्होंने हमारी आस्था के साथ इस तरह से खिलवाड़ किया.
Can the government and temple authorities address the hurt feelings of crores of devotees? With Apurva Jayachandran in Tirupati, Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's take a break at this point. When we return, we'll turn to our good news today story, and it comes from the world of chess. India truly is the world power now when it comes to Shatranj. We'll tell you more of that double delight at the Chess Olympiad. More when we return.
India Today Conclave 2024, September 25th and 26th, Mumbai. Book your seat now. Visit indiatodayconclave.com.
Motorola Razr 50 Ultra comes with Google Gemini.
Hi, I am AI anchor Sana, bringing the top headlines for you, presented by Motorola. Kiran Rao's Lapata Lady selected as India's official entry for Oscars 2025. Delhi CM Atishi sits next to Arvind Kejriwal's empty chair, BJP calls it drama. 4 dead, several injured as private bus falls into deep ditch in Maharashtra's Amravati.
To our good news today story, a new chapter written in India's chess history. For the very first time, India won 2 gold medals at the Chess Olympiad. It's a moment that has made the country proud, sparked celebrations in India's chess fraternity. India's young grandmasters have well and truly conquered the world. I leave you with our young Shatranj ke khiladi. Stay well, stay safe. Good night, Shubhratri. Jai Hind, Namaskar.
An epoch-making moment in Indian chess. A gold by the Open and women's team at the biggest stage in world chess. First, it was the men's team that defeated Slovenia 3.5 to 0.5 in round 11